Hi, Grandma here, and I am reading The House of 60 Fathers, beginning on page 90 with the paragraph that begins, "Oh no, oh no." Tien Pao and the airman have been found by Chinese guerrillas in the mountains, and they have managed to avoid being captured by the Japanese. Tien Pao is worried about what has happened to the American, and also they have captured a Japanese, and Tien Pao wanted to know if the Japanese has been killed. Did you kill him? Oh no, the guerrilla chief said at last. He was mightily pleased with the work of the night. He was examining the rifle from the Japanese. It's a good gun, he said. He ran his fingers over the ammunition belt. It was full, except for one bullet. The soldier had evidently intended that for glory of the Republic, if he couldn't run the little pig through with a silent bayonet. Oh no, the chief said. If we had wanted to kill the Jap, we wouldn't have tricked him with your pig. Alive, he is worth more. Alive, we can question him. But where is the airman? Tien Pao asked again. Oh, not here, the leader said briefly. It was clear he did not want to answer that question. What did you do with him? Tien Pao persisted. I must know. He is my friend. The guerrilla shook his head. Your white friend is safe. That's all you need to know, he told Tien Pao. And do not ask any more. It is far better that you do not know how we are taking him back to the American lines. You are still more than a day's journey inside Japanese territory, and you might still be captured, and then you would talk. Oh yes, you would talk. But if you do not know, you cannot tell. Tien Pao nodded somberly. The words filled him with sick horror. But the food had begun cooking, and Tien Pao forgot everything for the heavenly odors of the rice and greens. He almost fainted over the bowl of steaming rice that was handed to him. All the men were hungry. They ate hurriedly and silently. Tien Pao wolfed his bowl full. He was holding out his bowl for more when, at a whispered word from the leader, the men arose. The journey was to go on even by day. The guerrillas wanted to get Tien Pao out of Japanese country as fast as the airman. They knew only too bitterly well what happened to those who helped American pilots to escape. At a nod from the leader, the old woman went to a secret hole in the wall and took out buckets and carrying poles and hose. Tien Pao was to carry 2 buckets. Now, remember this, the guerrilla chief told him. During the day, we do not fight the Japanese. We are farmers. If we meet Japanese on the path, do not run, no matter how scared you may be. When the warning comes, get off the path as soon as possible and go to the nearest rice paddy with your buckets. But do not run. Act exactly as if it were your father's rice paddy. Do you understand? Another thing the leader said, today I am your father, Juan. If you trot at a respectable distance behind me with your buckets, your name is Tsu, and you are not too bright. If we are questioned by the Japanese, let me do the talking. If they speak to you directly, act the fool, and don't be alarmed if I abuse you and even slap your face for your stupid answers. Now, repeat our names and remember them. Tien Pao repeated the names. One more thing, the guerrilla said. If any of the Japanese that pass us order you to work for them. Do not show that you hate them. Work for them willingly. It is at night that we kill them. One of the guerrillas had fitted a false bottom with air holes into one of Tien Pao's buckets. Glory of the Republic had been trussed up, legs and snout. The old woman had brought a little pile of old wet straw and litter. Now, Glory of the Republic was lowered into the bucket. The false bottom was pounded over him, and the rubbish and straw were spread over the false bottom. The second bucket was filled with heavier litter. The buckets were now balanced on the carrying pole, and both looked equally full and heavy. It was hard to see Glory of the Republic trussed up and shoved into the bottom of a bucket, But Tien Pao realized that they could not travel by day in Japanese occupied territory with the pig. Soon, son, Sue, we must go, the guerrilla leader ordered. He threw a hoe over his shoulder. Ready, Honorable Father Juan, Tien Pao said meekly. He braced his shoulders under the carrying pole and started to lift the bucket. A moment, please, the old crone mumbled apologetically to the guerrilla leader. With a toothless smile for Tien Pao, she hastily brought him a second bowl of rice. The guerrilla impatiently lowered his hoe, but he said nothing. Because of the heavy load and the starved lad, the journey will go much better for a second bowl of rice, she apologized. A child must eat, and I love a child. The guerrilla smiled a little, and Tien Pao hastily wolfed the rice. Ready, he said, with his mouth full of food, and shouldered his loaded buckets. He trotted down to the door, He trotted out behind his so-called father, but outside the door he turned and said with all the heart to the old crone, "And I love you." It was a lovely smile her old mouth gave him in their parting. Aren't the others coming? Tien Pao asked, puzzled, after he and the guerrilla leader had been on the trail a while. In the daytime, we do not travel in groups. Each man is on his own. It's best also that you do not follow so closely at my heels. Keep at a distance, the guerrilla ordered. Tien Pao fell back. He trotted at a distance behind the leader all that morning. They gave no sign that they knew each other. At noon, the guerrilla had a warning that a small detachment of Japanese cavalry were on the mountain path. Tien Pao's so-called father hurried to a nearby rice paddy and wearily began turning clods as if he had been working at it since early dawn. Tien Pao became confused. He dreaded meeting the Japanese alone, but he did not know whether he was to join the guerrilla or find a paddy of his own. He trotted up the path as fast as he could and hoped that he'd find another rice paddy over the hill. Over the rise burst a file of Japanese horsemen. They galloped straight down on Tien Pao. Tien Pao's heart fluttered. He wanted to run, but he crowded to the side of the path and kept jogging along with his loaded buckets. To his relief, the Japanese horsemen passed him without so much as a glance. Then one of the buckets happened to graze the leg of an officer's pony. The horse shied. The officer had him under control in a moment, but instead of riding on, he whipped his pony around on the path and charged him straight at Tien Pao. There was nothing to do. Tien Pao flung himself over the bucket in which Glory of the Republic was hidden. Above him reared the horse, the hoofs pawing the air. But the horse was afraid of the sprout Tien Pao. Snorting with fear, it backed away on its hind legs. With a curse, the officer rammed his spurs into the animal's flanks. But instead of coming down on Tien Pao, the trembling horse in one wild lunge cleared Tien Pao, bucket and all, and tore headlong down the steep, rocky side of the hill. There had been no time for fear, but now that officer and horse were gone, Tien Pao began shaking all over, weeping with rage and hate. A second, bigger detachment of Japanese came over the hill, but Tien Pao, standing between his buckets, weeping out his rage, did not notice, and when they were on top of him, he was too unnerved to move. The guerrilla at the rice paddy had seen what was happening to Tien Pao and came running. "Here, stupid son," he shouted angrily. "Here, fool, weakling, lazy oaf. The manure must be here that my paddy may sprout the rice of good harvest for us and our Japanese friends, and it doesn't need watering with your tears." He came running with the hoe as if he'd like to break it over Tien Pao's head. The passing Japanese laughed among themselves at the comical scene between the two stupid Chinese farmers. The guerrilla took Tien Pao by the shoulders and shook him violently. But under his breath, he said, "It is well. Don't lose your head now. You did so well." That was all he said, but encouraged, Tien Pao took up the bucket, and the journey went on again. Tien Pao was bone-tired and tottering when in the late afternoon they entered a house. Rice was steaming and the odor of good food so filled the house that Tien Pao became weak and dazed. He fumbled clumsily with the bucket to let Glory of the Republic out of his cramped quarters. A young woman took the bucket from him and handed him a bowl of steaming rice instead. Tien Pao did not even look up at her face, just sat stooped over his rice, letting the steam from the beautiful big white kernels curl up around his nose. There were no guerrillas here. There was no one in the house but this young woman. The guerrilla leader turned to Tien Pao. "This is your mother while we are here. This is my wife, Yin." Tien Pao started. It was the exact name of his own mother. The pretty young woman even looked like his mother. Tien Pao sat staring ahead of her, and such longing rose in him for his own mother, his hunger almost left him. The young woman, who was feeding Glory of the Republic, saw him staring. She smiled and nodded for him to start eating. She understood. Tien Pao ate, but his heart was full. Suddenly, the guerrilla chief asked the young woman, "Was a beggar carried past the house here?" She nodded. "Oh, hours ago, and if they keep on at this pace they were going, the beggar should be in friendly territory by the time night falls." Tien Pao was puzzled, but suddenly Yin laughed and said, "Oh, it worked splendidly. One man was carrying the old gray-beard piggyback, and the old beggar looked so piteous, even a Japanese officer dropped some money in the wooden bowl the beggar held in his dirty hand. Immediately afterwards, he became so furious with himself for his moment of weakness, I was told, that from then on, he pushed everybody and everything out of his way." Tien Pao laughed with the young woman, who did not see her husband's warning glance. "I wonder if that was the same cavalry officer who tried to run me down with his horse." The guerrilla had to tell the story to Yin. "Charge a horse at a boy and let an American airman pass under his nose," Yin said contemptuously. Then it struck Tien Pao. "But if the airman will be safe, why then I'll soon be in friendly territory too," he exclaimed. "A few more hours of walking toward morning, and you'll be out of Japanese lines," the guerrilla assured him. "Just a few more hours of hoeing and manuring your father's rice paddies and you'll be safe. But understand, your father has many rice paddies all over China, and he hoes and manures them well with his oaf of a son." They laughed. They ate a hearty meal with laughter. Then the guerrilla left on some secret errand of his own. "A few more hours," Tien Pao marveled aloud after the meal was over. He still couldn't believe it. It seemed almost impossible after the many long days and longer nights. A few more hours in the morning. "Just a few more hours, really," the young woman said gaily. "But then why can't we go right on like the airman?" Yin shook her head. "Your so-called father has other things to do this night. And then the wounded airman is being carried. But after the beating you've been taking all day and night and no food, you couldn't keep up with those heavy buckets. Ah, but you need a bath." The young woman hauled out a wooden tub and splashed warm water into it. Tien Pao began taking off his mud-caked clothes, but they wouldn't come. They stuck. He had to ask Yin to help. It hurt too much. Yin soaked them loose, but she looked thoughtful and serious when the cloth stuck in old wounds, and she winced when she worked the stuck cloth loose. When Tien Pao was finally stripped, Yin vigorously scrubbed his dirt, but she daubed gently on his many sores and bruises and muttered angrily to herself whenever she hurt him. And we have another photo of Tien Pao getting a bath. "After you've bathed me, may I bathe Glory of the Republic in the tub?" Tien Pao asked. "He's a very proper pig, and he has many wounds too." It's pretty hard to stay on your feet, climbing mountains in the dark. The guerrilla leader coming into the house heard Tien Pao's plea for glory of the Republic. "Oh, so," he said, "is that the name of your pig? Well, it's a good name, for we're going to have much use for him in fighting for the Republic. He tricked one Jap, and he's going to trick more. They just love pork. They can't resist it when they hear it squealing on some dark mountain path." The guerrilla laughed, but Tien Pao did not laugh. "Glory of the Republic is all I have," he said softly. "In that you have more than we," the guerrilla said sternly. "We half starve while we work for the Japanese. We fight them at night, and they hunt us night and day. You remember the old crone who gave you that second bowl of rice this morning?" "Oh, I do," Tien Pao said fervently. "Well, word has just come to me the Japanese burned her house, and she was in it. And you don't even want to sacrifice a pig?" Tien Pao paled, and he did not know what to say after that awful news. Any way he said it, it would sound selfish and hard-hearted. He finally said to the young woman, but he did not dare look at the guerrilla, "I have lost my home, the sampan, and the ducklings," he almost whispered. "Nor do I know if I will ever get back to my father and mother and my baby sister. The little pig was all I had in the dark nights in the mountains, and I was not so brave, but I had glory of the Republic." "Brave?" the young woman declared flatly. Then she heard Tien Pao at arm's length, turned him around and around so the guerrilla chief could see every part of his body. "Look at him. Look at this and that, battered and bruised all over his body, and you want to take his pig from him to catch one more miserable Jap? It's not for me to dispute your decisions, but didn't he save the airman's life?" The guerrilla smiled. "What can a man do against a woman and a child?" "It is well, my son. You've been a fine young warrior for China. The pig is yours, and now I'm going to bed for a few hours' sleep." Tien Pao swooped at Glory of the Republic, threw him into the tub, and washed him so splashily that it made a racket. But it was all done so that they could not hear that he was crying, and he was secretly relieved when the guerrilla chief went to bed. That night, Glory of the Republic slept in a secret place inside the double wall of the house. But after the guerrilla left on his night mission, Tien Pao slept in the bed with his so-called mother. It was soft, it was warm, it was glorious and safe, and the young woman held him close. So, our next chapter will be chapter 6, and it's titled "In the Town of Terror." And it shows Tien Pao with Glory of the Republic on a leash. It makes me a little worried. And later on, I see a picture of somebody with his pig. So he's not in safe hands real soon. And also, I'm beginning to wonder, why is this called the House of 60 Fathers? We are over halfway through, and I don't know. Do you? Do you have any idea? Well, we'll see when we continue reading. Bye-bye.